Good morning. Welcome everybody to a new appointment with Lunch with NIC. My name is Gabriella Capurazzo and I am a PMI NIC volunteer. I'm particularly pleased to have Matteo Fontana with us today. Matteo is an adaptive project manager. He is senior project manager at Garmin. Is responsible for the coordination of projects of 4 agile teams at the tax software and app department. PMO responsible for implementing project management hybrid methodologies, processes, procedures, and tools to maximize the department's efficiencies in delivering projects and value to Garmin customers. Together, we will learn something interesting on PMO implementation. Before start, some technical information. Matteo will be open to answer to all your questions at the end of the presentation. You can use the specific Q&A Zoom section. I would remind you that if you have entered your PMI ID during the registration, the PDU will be charged automatically in your personal dashboard in 10-50 days. It's my pleasure now to give the floor to Matteo. Thank you.
Hi all, thank you very much for having me here, and of course it's a pleasure. Today I would like to talk about 2 different approaches to implement a project management office, PMO. One that we can call like ideal, and another more pragmatic or let's say survival, based on the company in where you are working actually. But before diving into this, I would like to clarify what I do consider is the role of the project manager, saying, well, what the project manager is not for me is not who is in CC on all emails, who persecute colleagues to do their job, who schedule meetings for others, and who reports on behalf of others. About this point, we could open a discussion along the entire duration of this meeting. But for me, if you are a project manager and if you have subject matter expert, why should we report on their behalf? They can speak, and better for the project manager is set up processes to let them speak and defend their position, the decision on the project. And of course, for me, is not the one who makes business and technical decision. I heard a lot interviews, so we are looking for a technical project manager, but the project manager, in my opinion, has most value the management of the project, so brings that. So we define, and what a project manager is who define, manage, and optimize processes, procedures, roles, tools, and communication channel for managing the project. His or she's who map and manage stakeholder expectation, provide and maintain what I call as project architecture. So risk, action, decision, issue, scope requirements in terms of organization, not written them down, and schedule and cost. So basically, the whole architecture of the information of project managed in a proper way to keep the project always updated and in a clear state for all stakeholders. Of course, one of the roles of the project manager is support management, so managers, upper management, to make decision and undertake action based on the information that the project manager take care. And of course, schedule meetings sometimes when people get lost in emails back and forth. So for this kind of project manager, I think the holy grail is actually having a project management office. But what I mean for a project manager office, well, is can be a person or a group of persons or a department that actually define standards. So people pay to think how we are working and to improve that way of working in terms of life cycle, so phases, sub-phases, framework used to manage the project, roles and responsibility in each project. So who must do something is defined, and processes and procedures, so change request, escalation, project prioritization, and any procedure that is in place in the project is defined and executed in a standard way. And of course, a tool for managing the project, like to organize and maintain the schedule, risk, action, decision, and issue, and collecting and maintain requirements for along the entire duration of the project, and to use those requirements afterwards to understand well, how the project went, good or worst. And of course, communication standard tools like event reporting, standard event in the meeting, and one way to report and how, which kind of information, KPI, etc. So this kind of department, let's say, must support the management decision at the portfolio level, provide guidance and support and training to all the project managers to keep them updated in terms of certification, knowledge, and best practice, and continuous improvements. So this department keep improving all the standards, all the process, all the operation, keeping in mind the entire architecture of the company and the evolution of the time and the needs, the goals of the company. And of course, is that one that department that person that actually has and provide a portfolio management system. So an overview of all the project in which all projects roll up their information, defining standard KPI for reporting and making decisions. So when it comes to implement this beauty that I think is the dream of all project manager, at least is mine, well, I think we can find two kind of company. Well, we have the ideal one and, well, the type that is open to formalize processes, define and improve standards, who is not scared to design a workflow on paper and improve it along the time, has a project, a process actually, to improve this one. And of course, we have the busy company, well, that actually it has only time for doing and redoing activities and projects without really understand how to implement. There is no guidance, there is no processes, there is anything. Simply is only a repetition of common action that lies on the memory of the project manager and their goodwill, but without a clear understanding, and for that reason, and therefore, any kind of optimization. So let's start with the ideal company that I think is the simplest one. Well, if you are working in an ideal company, I think the process to implement a portfolio, a project management office should be this one. So you have three phases: study, test, adopt, and improve. During the study phase, you actually map the existing process, roles, and responsibility. You start from where you are, so understanding your company, its legacy, and how it's working. You collect requirements to understand what is missing and could be improved. And of course, you try to define, talking with all the team leaders of each department, their way of working. So this WOW is part of the discipline agile approach of the PMI that I think is one of the best, most practical and applicable methodology I found so far to connect each department in one and unique, beautiful view of the organization. And of course, when you have those information, you can pick up a life cycle. So define how you want to manage the project, a life cycle that can be agile cycle, continuous agile, lean, program, or exploratory. So a way in which you want to deliver the project with phases, sub-phases, and everything behind. So a life cycle that covers it all. This is the study phase, and you can move to the test phase. So in this phase, you can actually implement what you have discovered and improve the way of work of each department. And in parallel, you can scout for a portfolio management system, because it's important to have a project management system, so a PMS, but it's important that this system can roll up information at the portfolio level to provide manager an overview, because with an overview of the project, managers can make a decision. So you find out that there are a lot in the web, online, and when you decide for one, you can start a pilot running one or maybe two projects to see how it works. In this time, you can consolidate the KPI of your reporting system and start training the manager about those KPI. And of course, you are ready to go for the third phase, in which you are going to adopt. Of course, in these phases, you are always and keep improving your documentation and your knowledge about the needs of the company, to be sure that this system implemented is up to date with what the company wants to achieve in the future. So during the adoption and improve phase, you can, keep improving your portfolio management system. You can scale to other projects. You can keep implementing your report system, but what is most important, you can start training and, keep training managers and project manager with this system you have created to make sure that everybody is on board. This is very important because at a certain point, people must speak the same language, use the same terminologies to make very nimble and fluent all the conversation and the make of decision. So last but not least, document and improve. So when you have consolidated a way of work, you have to document it, create some kind of wiki. And this should be the ideal approach and in an ideal company. But what happens if you are in a busy company? So at a certain point, if you are a good project manager, you end up managing multiple projects at the same time. And therefore, you need to have some kind of standard just because you need to survive those projects and to land them. And you need this standard because you don't want to reinvent the wheel on each new project, waiting for the implementation of project management office. In this kind of company, I developed this approach that starts actually by mapping and collecting requirements of the current organization. I won't spend more than 2 or 3 weeks to understand how the company is going, but the goal is choosing as soon as possible a project life cycle. Of course, there is no talking with the team leaders of this department to understand the way of work. Is straight away to picking a life cycle. That means you have multiple projects. You need to bring at home successfully those projects. So you have to organize those projects in terms of phases, roles, KPI, process, communication channel, and organization of the information. So I pick a life cycle based on what I understand, and I put on paper. And this is a trick because the first one who formalized something on paper, define a standard. So it's a good way to start to implement a project management office. Put on paper what you are doing and try to start from there. The second approach for me is actually build a basic portfolio management system. So here the goal is to collect all the information of all the project in terms of KPI in one place and start presenting this information to the management, to the managers, to get them accustomed to talk about numbers. So this is very important. You can manage a project without numbers. Numbers makes very simple any kind of communication. So this is very important for me to aggregate those information in a place where I can elaborate them. And generally is Excel, because Excel is everywhere. So I start using this one. And over this information, this KPI, I start implementing a busy reporting system. So I start to report to my manager using those KPI. That's one document with the overview of all project. And of course, I start a pilot. The pilot are my project. This is the build something phase. Well, when you feel comfortable about your system, so you have a project life cycle that is kind of stable, well formalized somewhere, generally can be Confluence, for example, and you are using your Excel on daily basis to communicate with your manager and manage the project. So all your risk decision, action, and schedule is there. Well, you can scale to the second phase that is actually share. So, okay, share with your colleagues the way you are working, not just to teach them how well you're doing, but to improve your baseline. So you share your documentation, you share the life cycle, you ask for feedback, and then you can start to improve this information. And the funny thing is that we have something written on paper. So that is the starting point for your colleagues to elaborate and improve and even adopt what you are doing, because what is documented can be shared. What can be shared can be improved. So in this phase is actually all about sharing and keep training the management on making decision about the numbers and the KPI you have implemented. KPI, for example, the earned value method is a very good approach to well, reduce the project to KPI that can define and respond about how is going the project. So in this phase, you improve your reporting system, you scale to other projects because you feel comfortable, and of course you start thinking about the portfolio management, and you start implementing processes like change request process, decision making processes, risk management assessment, evaluation, etc. So all the process that can cover multiple projects that can be performed on every project ongoing and in the future. And you are ready to go to the third phase. Let's say that the third phase, scaling improve, is when your manager understands that having one place to look at to understand the project is super useful, and is way more useful having something documented, so your way of work documented somewhere. Because what's happened if a project manager leaves the company, generally brings with himself all the knowledge. So it's again reinventing the wheel every time. But if there is something written down that is actually work, share with your colleagues, is super easy. Onboard someone and well, keep him or her up to speed for start managing the project. And this is at the end very valuable in terms of knowledge for the company, and it's also money for the people who you are hiring. So in the third part, you are optimizing. You actually start working with your team leads to understand the way of work, and you can start proposing improvements. So maybe team leads are working with Scrum. Okay, let's see which kind of Scrum, which degree of Scrum you are using, if we can tweak a little bit the operation you're doing during your sprint, or if you are using Lean, well, let's see if we can implement a Lean or move to another kind of framework or approach. So you can actually work with the others with the support of the manager, and you can integrate. So this is the fun part, your report management system with your portfolio management system. And in this case, all the reporting and the reporting doesn't lie on PowerPoint, but can be implemented in something better that actually generate automation and automatically the reports based on the status of the project. That this is a relief for all project managers because they don't have to aggregate the data and run for presenting a PowerPoint. This is at least my point. And well, you can start improving portfolio process. So you can start introducing concepts like portfolio prioritization, risk skill management, stakeholder management, stakeholder expectation, capacity management, capacity balancing. So there is a lot to implement when you have this in place. And of course, you can start scouting because you are still working with Excel or with your basic model. So you start scouting or develop inside the company your portfolio management system. If we want to talk about how, so in terms of tools, we can do that. Well, so far, my approach has been this one. So generally, big company means big legacy. So it's kind of very complicated to have straight away approved by IT a new fancy portfolio management system. So generally it takes a lot of time. You have to convince a lot of people, but we need to survive. So I started implementing my own portfolio management system using Excel. And when I have a solid base of information, generally Office 365 is everywhere. So Excel is everywhere, is the most common tool you can find in a company. So when you have a good data model for your information, you can actually connect those information to Power BI and implement that reporting system that automatically report the status of each project based on the information you have in your portfolio management system. So when I start, I actually located my portfolio and my project management system inside as Excel. I define here basic KPI metrics and basic reporting. And when I'm ready, I jump into Power BI to provide manager with a fancy and beautiful overview of all the status of the project in one click and one link. It's it's amazing what you can do with these two tools. And when you are very comfortable, so you can decide to scout for another project management portfolio management system. So there are a lot. And but if your company is so special that and I found a lot that its way of working is so specific, is difficult to be mimicked by a project management system, a commercial version outside. Well, you can implement your own. And the implementation can be done through Power Apps. That actually is a beautiful suite to implement business application, mission critical business application inside, and you don't need to be a developer. I'm not a fan or a promoter of Microsoft, but so far, considering the effort to adopt, let's say Jira or Smartsheet or other portfolio system, I found these three tools a lifesaver when you need to, well, create your own portfolio management system. And Power Apps at the end is very handy because you as project manager, you can develop what you need and create this kind of portfolio to have. So what's the morale of this meeting for me is just do it. So you don't need to wait for someone that start a project for implement a PMO. A project manager should be able to start the implementation of a PMO. So first understand where you are and start from there. So you don't need to jump from lean to agile or from program management to portfolio to waterfall. So you need to understand how your company is working. So your mindset, its legacy, and start from there. Put on paper what you are doing to manage the project. So pick up a life cycle. You can refer to discipline agile, to PMI, to Prince, whatever methodology you want. Refer to that and put on paper. So third step, gather the project KPI in one place and start using that place for reporting and train your manager on those KPIs. And when you feel comfortable, well, when you are succeeding, actually, share with your colleagues and start building a conversation on how we can improve our way of work, because there are for sure people in your company that are working better than you, and that have more information, more knowledge, and more experience on how doing things, and you can keep those information and put on your documentation, and you are ready to go, because you are half of the way to implement a real project management office that you can scale and you can end up to lead. So thank you very much. This was my presentation. I hope you liked it.
Thank you, Matteo. Very interesting. As I told you before, I feel the matter very near to me. So I have some question for you. If you want, let's start with how can you use Excel to create a portfolio management system?
Well, portfolio metrics or project metrics like AVM are basic calculations. So most of them are sum, division, multiplication. So you don't actually need a good expertise or to be a mathematical genius to implement them. The trick is actually treat Excel not like a fancy sheet in which you want to put color information, but like a database. So, for example, you can have one sheet for risk, decision, issue, and whatever. And the goal is always combine information and roll up them to another sheet that you can call project. So you have the overview of the portfolio. So the trick here is, well, start using complex formula like if S or sum S or whatever that can you filter, let you filter and roll up information. So what's you have to do is actually to create a data model that will let you to aggregate information. That's the trick. I'm actually spend a lot of my time, my spare time actually, studying on Udemy, because there are tons of beautiful courses and lessons about how to use Excel, Power BI that are not so difficult, so long, and give you the skill you need actually to start implementing something that you can use to report.
Okay, let's see if we can answer other two questions. Maurizio Rocco Viscontini is asking, interesting, but do you really suggest this approach, or is it just what you found feasible considering constraints? Because it seemed confusing if compared with the traditional approach.
Well, I don't know which kind of traditional approach you are referring, but well, this is what I use in the last 6 years in different company, from a bank to scientifics to, well, right now I'm in the implementation of goods, sports goods, and I found this approach quite scalable. Of course, it's not something I invented. It's an adaptation of the discipline agile approach, and you can find tons of documentation about this. But for me, the basic and the message of this meeting is, well, define how you work, put on paper, create one place in which you can gather information and start reporting from that, and you collaborate and collaborate with your colleagues to scale them up.
Thank you. Pietro Ferrario is asking, what is your experience with Power Apps? Some IT departments are usually against democratizing development.
Well, my experience with Power Apps is that I started learning 1 year ago how it works, and I actually implementing my own Power Apps. So it's not something that I'm not a developer. I don't have a development skill more than logic and object-oriented approaches. But well, depends on by your company. So in this company, Garmin, for example, Power Apps was already part of the 365 office. So I was able to obtain the licenses and start developing on my own environment. So no big deal. Well, in other company, if I can, and I prefer to use commercial tools that already exist, because it's straight away and straightforward, the implementation. But well, to respond to your question, I think it depends on your company and your IT.
Okay, thank you. We have other two questions, but I think that we will answer offline, and then we send the answers. So thank you again for being with us, Matteo, and for your valuable contribution. Really, really interesting. Thank you all for participating. If you have other questions or you need some information, please write to events at pmi-nic.it. So thank you again, and see you to the next lunch with Nick.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.